Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Russell Wright from themezoom.com. I want to thank you for joining us today on the last keyword tool. I hope wherever you're at, you're having a beautiful day and hopeful, positive, and excited. And we were going to start off this call with the theme to Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, so that we could pep it up a little bit, but I decided it's just too early in the morning here to do that. And besides, I don't think Sue really likes that intro.
I just haven't had coffee yet. Other than that, it's fine.
Presentation, darling, presentation. Okay. We have a few people on the call. We are missing about a third of the audience so far. We're going to kind of start anyways, and the replay will be available. Note, Dawn, that is not Welcome to the Jungle on Sue's desktop. That is her backdrop of choice, which changes from day to day. On a bad day, when I look at her desktop and it's whips and chains, I know I'm in trouble. On a good day, all the developers run screaming for the back offices if it's, if there's scary stuff on her desktop. So we're going to be I'm pretty excited about this webinar because it's been a long time coming. Yeah, thanks, Kevin, precisely. I can't repeat that, unfortunately. No. We've been waiting for this webinar quite a while. I just want to talk a little bit while people start to drop into the call, give a little bit of story, provide some persona. Sue and I have been in business all the way since 2005 and 6, right? Pretty much,
yep.
Sue, 2005, was it? Yeah, I can't remember when it was that I was curled up in a ball under your desk. I'm screaming when I was working with bidsfilings.com and some of the big
January
corporate
15th,
clients.
2006.
Horrifying, yes, my first client. Gigantic corporation, thank you very much. So I had a great idea that I decided I was going to provide my client biz filings with every possible configuration and data set of every keyword on earth related to their business, because that's just the way I do things, and I was pretty new in the business. Sue and I were doing work on some other projects and systems together, but I really wasn't involved in creating software and technologies with her at all. I didn't even have any idea what her background was. We were working on some kind of like wedding website or some small, super small localized thing. And at the end of the day, we started talking, and she started to explain to me, data theory, or what data actually is, and how to correlate data, and how you can't correlate data from certain kind. How it may not be a good idea to try to make a parallel with Word Tracker and Google and all these other things. So basically, it was the creation of ThemeZoom 0.001. And that's when we started building data sets. So the original ThemeZoom product, interestingly enough, was a combination of an educational process and a build your product at the speed of thought kind of stuff. She was kind of looking over her side shoulder and building it halfway during the first few months, just kind of as a game. And then it got some momentum, and it really wasn't her focus. She was the head of the department where we were at, and other things were happening. Then it started to get a little bit more serious, and then we had a lot of different kinds of coffee chats, and we spent a lot of time at Denny's restaurant drawing stuff, literally on placemats. The first prototype of ThemeZoom was on a placemat, just like the napkin drawing type concept. That was literally the case. And of course, I got a massive education. She learned some sales and marketing things from me. As I got more involved in that, and marketing was a big one, and I learned a ton of data stuff from her. That's right, Kelly. The 3 screens requirement was not my idea for ThemeZoom 1.0. It's just something that kind of developed when you have a live-in Perl programmer. That the solution seems to expand horizontally rather than vertically. That's just kind of what happens. So as we moved further, we actually had some pretty amazing things happen. Everything was very synchronistic. And Conan was with us at that time. He's still good friends of ours. We owe the ThemeZoom 1.0 a good portion of the late night programming stuff to him while Sue oversaw that. And then later we got more and more requirements became obvious, and then Sue managed to pull together a really great programming team, including Kelly Reynolds and others, and then Kraken became the next phase. And some of you on this call have been with us for that long. Well, the last keyword tool came out of my, what's the word shall I use? these carefully. My complete overwhelm, like, when I turned around and looked at the gigantic monstrosity and wonderful monstrosity that we had created, and also this huge power tool of ThemeZoom 1.0, and then transferring it to Kraken, which is just a true work of art. It's taken the impossible and made it into something very usable. I turned around and looked at it and said, Sue, all I wanted was a keyword tool. I didn't want a market-swallowing dominatrix, gigantic, black hole that sucks every, literally, Sue and Kelly were having conversations with an investor about how to download the entirety of the internet. We had an investor who was going to work with us and provide us with about $500,000, and we had a whole framework in place and a conceptual technology. It wasn't going to download the videos and audios, obviously, but like the first 1,000 layers of keywords, and we were going to build kind of like SEO Maven, a backlinking system and all that. And we took the best of some of that stuff and we did our own thing with it. We decided to go in a particular different direction, primarily because Sue predicted the cybernetic fusion that we're seeing right now. I was also looking a lot at how the online presence as far as sales was going to collide, or at least merge or fuse, genetically fuse with SEO. And that's what we have happening right now. We have an online kind of fusion between online reputation management, traffic, and PageRank, or technical requirements. So really what happened is the last keyword tool was born out of, shall I say, an attempt of my company, that's Sue and myself, to think small. And what happened is when Kelly, and I'll let Sue get into this a little bit, when Kelly created it, he put in the natural language processing, or LSI algorithm, and it's very expensive, and it's very intense to run these kinds of processes, and you're going to see all of these today. Also, Kelly, also being an inventor and working with us, we created the Bayes algorithm. Susan talked a little bit about that. The point is that this really is, I feel very strange about the last keyword tool, okay, because it's the most powerful keyword tool on the market, and I've completely undersold it. I've utterly failed as a marketer to bring the last keyword tool to market. Everybody in my company knows that. And part of the reason is because Market Samurai hit the market at the same time we did. We had a couple of the Market Samurai developers, actually were members, longtime members of ThemeZoom. And some of the TSMV concepts and the rest were added later to Market Samurai. Market Samurai had a lot of niche kind of functionality, that had the neural interface with the pink areas covered, saying this is a niche and this is stuff. And we're going to talk about that stuff today. And what happened is, because their desktop application and natural language processing wasn't at the time something that really had a large market share using LSI and the rest. And I really didn't know how to take this particular tool to market, and that's to your benefit, because you're really among the few who really understand why this is such a powerful tool and how superior it is to the majority of the tools out there. And I'm not saying that with any kind of arrogance, because we have friends with all the different tools. I'm just really talking about the fact that co-occurrence, natural language processing, is now finally becoming, especially in reputation management, especially in cybernetics, especially in social media, combined with what Google is now doing, is going to be actually more a requirement. And we are glad that we built it. We're looking at each other going, wow. I'm really glad that, Sue and I were talking the other day, and I was like, she was like, remember back when you were complaining that this is not a keyword tool? Now I'm really glad we built it, because all of this stuff is becoming really important with the new online web. And so I'm going to step out of the way, and Sue's going to jump in. She's the creator, the developer of ThemeZoom, the architect of all of our major technologies. If you have any questions, please type them in the box in your webinar, and my job is to make sure your questions get answered. If they do not get answered, I'll pass them to Sue. If not, they will be answered in the blog post following the webinar replay. Thank you very much, and Sue, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Russell. It's my pleasure to be here. So this is TLKT. When you first log in, when it's a brand new account, obviously you don't have any projects there. And I'm just going to go across the tabs for a little bit to start. This is your projects tab, where you see all of the projects that you have, if you have any. This is your keyword tab. So a project is where you actually drill into a keyword, and it'll bring back a collection of keywords. You can see the number of keywords that you've got here. And you can also see the last time you updated it. That'll be your drill date unless you refresh it. But a keyword is where you take a deeper inspection. You take a deep look into a particular keyword to see who the top competitors are. It's a competitive analysis type of a a report. And then you've got your filters. Anything that's marked default are the filters that come as part of the program, and we're going to be adding more to those in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, you're free to make your own as well. So filters and columns are a very similar kind of a concept. You can create your own columns, and the creation of the filters and the columns is where the real power of this tool lies, is where it sets what sets TLKT apart from everything else, and it's actually what I've used to develop the algorithms for the last couple of revisions of Kraken. So that should give you an idea to the power that's available here. In other words, about a year ago, we did a major update on how we calculate the LSI requirements in all of Kraken, both VOMA and in the blueprint. And I actually used TLKT to refine those algorithms so that I could get exactly what I wanted and then pass those algorithms to Kelley. Now, of course, within Kraken, it's all part of a larger thing, but it does give you insight as to the power that lies behind these two options. Then over here you've got a queue. You can see what you've recently drilled. It shows you about 48, maybe 72 hours worth of drills. And just because you have a failed request, as this one has, it doesn't mean that there's not actual good data there. So if you get, this is actually a problem we have right now. Google just started giving us back larger values for their competing pages. And so if it's really too huge, then it doesn't manage to actually get it put into the, I'll just show you this really fast. It doesn't actually manage to get it into this space. So the next minor change that we make, we'll update that. And then you've got your account information over here if you want to change your billing or if you want to change your account plan, that kind of stuff you can do here. So I'm going to go back to my queue for just a minute because this is where, actually let's go back to a project. So let me just queue up a project really fast. So when you're here, you can create a new project. You can throw in your keyword. I'm just going to try website hosting. And you can pick your locale. So this is the same as Kraken, and you've got the same options as Kraken. There's something like somewhere around 30 different countries that you can choose from, and then you can queue your project. At this point, it brings you to the queue screen so that you can see what the status is with your current drill as well as the status with your other drills. So I'm going to go into, and it also shows you here what type of drill you did. So I've been looking at some keywords this morning, prepping some stuff that I wanted to look at, as well as refreshing one of the drills, one of the project drills that I'd done before. So with that, I'm going to move to the project, this project, and we'll take a look at the data that's in here. So when you drill into a keyword, and we call them projects rather than themes, you know, in Kraken we call them themes, but we don't do any kind of filtering here. You can see there's like 334 keywords, which is far and away more than what you'll ever see in a drill in Kraken. That's because we don't get rid of anything. We don't drill quite as deep as we do in Kraken. And as you know, we can drill up to 60, 70,000 keywords in Kraken. That's usually because you've got synonyms in there. In this particular case, you can only drill on a single keyword. There's no synonyms. And the most you'll probably ever see back is about 1,000 keywords. So as you look down through the list of keywords here, I've currently got this sorted by cost per click. And as you look down through the list here, you'll see, a little further down, you'll see that there are keywords here that don't have any cost and search, and even some things that don't have any, let's just see what that is. Yeah, cost and clicks, and even some that don't have any searches. And that's because we don't discriminate. In Kraken, we look at the data and we only give you keywords that are valuable as compared to your parent term. But here, it's just a free-for-all. You can have everything, and you'll get what Kelley calls cruft. In other words, you will get keywords that are absolutely positively, at least on the surface, not the least bit germane to your theme. Now, they all came off of your competitors' websites as well as some other places. Usually the most questionable terms come off of competitors' websites because your competitors can get quite creative with their keywords. But typically, if you dig far enough, you'll see that there is some some kind of a reference in there somewhere that makes some sense and some kind of a tangent idea, and we just didn't want to throw anything away. Like, that was the idea behind this. That was the idea behind TZ3. We didn't throw anything away. And so when we were recreating this, it's like, okay, let's not throw anything away. Now, obviously you've got your keyword, you've got your cost per click, you've got your clicks per day. The upper and lower is left over from about a year ago when Google AdWords was giving us lower and upper values. And so we still just have those values in there. They don't do that anymore, but we think it might come back, so we didn't get rid of it. You've got your searches, you've got Google competing pages, you've got Yahoo competing pages, you've got the LSI and the Bayes value, and this is just referenced like this keyword against your parent term, and I'll get into that more in just a minute. And then you've got uses. Now, uses is a really interesting concept. It's the number of times that, as we looked at the top competitors, it's the number of times we found your keyword used, or this keyword used in the keywords section, the meta keyword data of your competitors. So this kind of gives you an idea of how important they think this particular keyword is, how germane they think it is to the topic at hand. And I have oftentimes found instances where LARI, which I'll show you here in a minute, LARI is a way that we calculate a thematic relevance based on LSI and Bayes. I've oftentimes found LARI to be rather low, but if uses is greater than 1, it's an important keyword. So just food for thought there. Okay, I'm going to throw out a lot of food for thought, and then I'm going to show you how you can combine these interesting ideas into filters and columns. So searches are searches per day, yes. All right, so yeah, this is clicks per day and searches per day. So without further ado, let's take a look at trying to figure out which way we go first. Let's save the filters and columns for the very end. So let's look at the keywords. Let me sort again by cost per click and take a look at some of the most interesting. Furnace repair, I picked that because it's this time of year, right? Everybody's starting to think about things like furnace repair. So interestingly enough, heating systems replacement is a $66 term, which I can kind of appreciate. That's a pretty expensive project. So if you land one of those, you're going to make a tidy little profit off of it. So so as we come in here and we actually click on the keyword, the first time you click on a keyword, let me show you that. The first time you click on a keyword, it's not going to have really, it might have some data here, but it's not going to be completely filled out because it was never inspected. Right? So to inspect a keyword, you just say re-inspect the keyword, and then it's going to come down here, it's going to say queued, and it'll be ready in just a minute. And this will automatically, your page will automatically refresh when that's ready, but I'm not going to wait for that. We're going to go back to this one that I already drilled into earlier. So as I look at this information here, first of all, I've got the page rank of the top 10, and I can look down this and I can say, okay, number 1's a 0, but it's a .gov. Number 2 is a page rank 2. Number 3 is a page rank 4. But then also take a look over here. You've got, these are the pages indexed for each one of these sites. So you've got total authority sites above the fold here. And you've got a .gov, you've got a .com, you've got another .gov, you've got another .gov. So you've got some heavy-hitting information sites here. Even this one's talking about tax credits, so it's going to be an information site.
Hey, Sue?
Yeah.
Are you using Mozilla? I was wondering if you could zoom in a little bit, make the browser a little bit bigger.
I can, but
I don't know where it is on Mozilla.
I have to change like that. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
What does a -1 on this mean?
-1 means the page rank hasn't been valued yet.
Okay.
So the other thing you want to look for are green flags versus red flags. If there's a red flag it means that the keyword that we're targeting, heating systems replacement, is not in the URL, or is not in the domain name. It's partially in the URL. Fascinating. Oh yeah, heating, cooling, heating service. Okay, yeah, I see heating in there. Partially in the URL, not at all in the domain. Partially in the title tag on the page. It's not in any of the metadata. And when you look at that, okay, the top couple are like that, then you start getting into a little bit of something that's a little bit of SEO here in this one, and then no SEO here at all. No, it's in the metadata here only. So this, like, I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, there's not a lot of SEO. The reason these people are here is mostly because of the authority nature of the site. Now, it doesn't give you, it doesn't actually give you inbound links, but it gives you an indication of inbound links just because of the page rank involved. And I actually think that that's a bit more of an indicator, because if you've got a page rank 0 sitting at the top, either this just hasn't been updated recently and it's actually higher, or there's nobody really targeting this term, or Google's promoting educational terms because it's $66 a click, right? Google's actually purposefully promoting educational sites above the fold, wanting you to pay the $66 a click. That would be my hypothesis. So chances are good you're not going to get anywhere above position 5 unless you pay for it. So, okay, that's one keyword. Let's come back and take a look at another keyword. Furnace repair, router. I think this one was another one I drilled into. No. Heating and air conditioning repair. There we go. This is a different story. You've got page rank 5, you've got page rank 4, 1 hour heater and air. These are going to actually be competitors, right? Not terribly well SEO'd, a little bit of SEO going on here. Not huge sites. They're not small sites, but they're not huge sites that we were looking at before. But the page rank is rather stiff. So you're still going to have a good time trying to get in here. I don't know what the deal is with this, where they're coming in at, what that page rank is actually going to be when it registers, but my guess is it's going to be a 4. So I'm just looking at that going, okay, that's probably not going to be a walk in the park either. Remember, when I'm thinking TLKT, I'm usually looking at markets that are up to page rank 4. It's not too hard to get to page rank 4. It's harder to get to page rank 5. So that's my breakoff point. If I want to go after this market and it looks like I need a page rank 5, I'm probably going to break out of TLKT and go over into Kraken and start taking a much better look at the market and how the whole thing lays out and where my opportunities actually lie, just because I can see that better over there. So this, I approach it more like a keyword tool, and I'm looking, in this particular case, I'm looking particularly at the more expensive keywords, which are going to be more expensive markets. But let me just come back here to my queue and find my other things that I drilled into. Heating and cooling repair. Another couple of page rank 5s, still not a lot of SEO. Pretty much the same thing as we looked at the last time. And system replacement, I drilled into that a couple of times. Furnace repair, wasn't that the first one we looked at? Oh, that's the actual drill itself. All right, so just as another total other opposite end, let's look at Denver plumbing, which is going to be obviously a local term. And now you can see a much more attackable market. You've got page rank 3 for the top couple positions. I would say a page rank 3 or maybe a page rank 4. This is probably the upper end of 3, since you've got a page rank 4 sitting here in the middle. This person's probably not optimized for this keyword as well as the guys that are above it. But these are smallish sites. You got one site that's only 52 pages. This is definitely a market that you could enter into. So if you're going to go down this path, I would say you're going to want to take the local market, which is what I would do anyway. If you're going to take the national market when you're looking at heating systems and heating repair, then I would transfer over to Kraken and take a look at the market better. Does that make sense? All right, good. So then let's get on to the fun stuff. Let me come back into my project and let's look at filters. All right, so let's start with existing filters. So as I said before, anything that's got a default in front of it are going to be filters that we include. And let's start with something just really simple. Has pay-per-click cost? So this is going to say Google lower, or you could say Google upper. Cost per click is greater than 0. Now, how did I know? I mean, obviously you can read that and you can kind of see what it means, but if you click on the show options, it will bring you an entire set of options. We'll go through all those options. Well, maybe not all of them. It would take a while to go through all of them, but we'll hit some of them here in a minute. So this is going to pull back all of the keywords that have a cost per click greater than 0. So let's apply that filter and just take a look at what happens. All right, so this allows you to see behind it whether it errored or not. And if it didn't error, you can click this closed. And then you can see that out of my 334 keywords that I had to start with in this actual drill, I've got now 185 that had cost associated with it. And as you can see, as I scroll down, it's shortened my my list incredibly. So now I've still got a lot of stuff in here. Let's say that I'm not really interested in these really expensive terms, because we already looked at several of them and we know that they're quite expensive, or that the ones that are really expensive are also quite hard to come by. What if we put a limit on this and we say, hey, we're only interested in terms that are maybe up to $20. So go back to my filter again. And we're going to say, and I'm going to cut and paste this rather than type it in again, is less than 20. So greater than 0 and less than 20. All right, so now you can see I don't have anything over $20. So, and that gave me an even smaller number of keywords to work with. Now, I just want to point out that if you do an export at this point, you'll only get the keywords in this list. So this lets you kind of do a pre-filter before you pull everything out and take it over to Domain Web Studio. How do I filter to remove single word terms? That's a great question. All right, we're getting into some advanced topics now. I'm going to take this off of being quite so narrow so I can show you a couple of different screens. Hang on a second. So if I click on, when I'm here in the filter thingy, that's a really technical term, okay guys? There's this show options, and if I click on that, it brings me back this. And this is like a cheat sheet that shows you all the different options you've got, okay? So these are your keyword options, and these are your seed options. So before I get into filtering for a single word term, let me just express a seed term here for a second. Let's say seed upper Google cost per click. Let's say that this is one I should have tested before I tried it. And keyword cost per click is less than the seed term. Okay, so this is going to give me the cost per click greater than 0 and the cost per click less than my seed term, which was furnace repair at $20. So this is going to be very similar to the thing that we just had, but the cool thing about this is because we use seed term, we can take this from one theme to the next or from one project to the next, and this will always be appropriate. If I hard code this in at $20 because $20 was the cost of my seed term, then as I move between markets, that's not going to be appropriate anymore. So this is going to be a filter that's always going to give me the results based off of my seed term. Does that make sense? So that's the idea behind all of the seed options you've got. The upper and lower are going to be the same. Clicks per day, searches per day. Basically, it's just walking across this idea here. Your Google competing pages, your Yahoo competing pages, and the LSI Bayes uses. Okay, so now let's get back down into what he asked for, which was how do you remove single word terms? Okay, so keyword term count is what we're looking for. That's the number of terms in a keyword. Okay, so what we want to say is keyword term count is greater than 1. And we're going to apply that filter. And this should bring us back all of the multi-shingled keywords. So as you can see now, I don't have any single keyword terms in there. And this is a great way for finding long tails that aren't actually, that are diverse from your seed term. Because there's also another thing in here that says keyword is a long tail. Let's apply the filter and just take a quick look at that. And that's just that. We just want the keyword to be the long tail. And that's going to bring back only the keywords that contain furnace repair. So that's a quick and easy way to see. As I look down this, I'm going, okay, Chicago. I'm looking at locales, right? You got Chicago, Portland, Wisconsin, Ohio, Illinois. So you're going to see all those places in the northern part, Seattle, all those northern parts. I'm surprised we don't have New York in there. And interestingly enough, you've got the vast majority of them that don't have any cost per click. So let's say that we wanted to see the long tails, only the long tails. So if this were an enormously long list and we didn't want to filter them by hand, we could also say, hey, I want to see the long tails where the cost per click is greater than 1. Boom, okay? So then that shows you only those where the cost per click is greater than 1. Or let's say we wanted to do term count. Is greater than 1, and the cost per click is greater than 1. Actually, I should say cost per click is greater than 0. I'm not getting this. When I say it's greater than 1, that's going to be $1. And you can also make this, you can put decimals in there if you want. So that's going to be cost per click greater than $1.50. Okay, so you're starting to see how you can mix and match all these different variables and come up with some really interesting filters. How would you remove keywords you determine are negative, if possible? You know, we don't actually have the functionality to delete a keyword on a keyword-by-keyword basis in this tool. You just kind of have to filter them out. Typically, if there's a keyword that you don't want, there's a reason why you don't want it, and you can exclude an entire group of keywords by figuring out what it is about that keyword that makes it not valuable. So for instance, let's just come up here right now and throw in a custom column. My favorite custom column, hands down, most useful, is LARI, Local Aggregate Relevance Index. And a variation of this is what we actually use in Kraken. So the precision doesn't need to be 2, and we can show this column. Now, if I sort by LARI, it's going to bring what's most relevant up at the top. And what's least relevant, reverse phone directory. You can see that reverse phone directory really doesn't have a whole lot to do with furnace repair. I'm sure it's got something to do, but man, it's way out there. And usually I find someplace between 45, got a electrostatic air filters. That's got something to do with filter repair. Indoor air pollution, like I can see this having to do something, heating Portland, Oregon. Those have got something to do with heating. Energy Star, it's really broad, but it pertain to heaters, definitely. Energy audits. But then you get into yellow pages. See, so someplace between 45 and 40, I find starts to get really tangent. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some concepts down here that aren't good, but they usually have uses greater than 1. Although I'm not seeing these uses greater than 1 to be. So isn't that fascinating? Reverse telephone directory showed up more than once for heaters. I can appreciate why telephone numbers would, but anyway. So so if I want to be really tight with my, if I want basically a Kraken-like theme, I would say something around 65. If you look down to 65, you've usually got really good keywords down to that point. And below 65, you start to have a few keywords. You've still got good keywords, but you start to have a few of them that are a little bit more tangent. Or, obviously, things that are a little bit more local. Local can be considered tangent because it's not as broad. You're not going to have as many sites that are talking about Denver heating. It's going to be a niche within heating. So how are we doing for questions on all of this? Because I've gotten into some really deep concepts here, Russ.
We have questions.
Okay.
And I was just trying to find a big spot. I think you're going to have to get far more into depth of what LARI actually is. And I mean, you tossed out a number, and you said, what, 65 or something, and that kind of gave people a lower limit. But I think that they would like to know more about what it is and what you mean by relevance, and you know, how to think about that.
Okay. I have to admit, Kelley came up with LARI, and from a mathematic point of view, it's just a little bit beyond my ability to be able to explain. If I sit with it for a few minutes, I can grok it, but being able to grok it and being able to explain it are two different things. So, Bayes is a generic index, and LSI is a specific index. So the way that we come up with our database for LSI is we go out and we look at your competitors. And then the database that we use for Bayes is much more generic. And so by balancing those two between each other, we can come up with how relevant one keyword is to another keyword. So.
And Sue?
Yeah.
There is a precise explanation and definition that I uploaded from Kelley directly on Themes in Glossary.
Yeah.
And the reason it stands for Local Aggregate Relevance Index is because the numbers from 0 to 100 are not comparable between analysis. It's only relevant within the same analysis.
Right.
So an 80 for one keyword does not necessarily mean the same 80 for another keyword.
Right.
In particular, the number of terms and stop words in different stems will change what that number means, and as will the number of different documents retrieved and their contents. And so it's actually incredibly sophisticated. Bayes and LSI can be analyzed independently as they convey different meanings, but LARI is a convenient way of combining those into a single generalized value that quickly finds the highest semantically valuable keywords. And obviously this is Kelley's favorite because he wrote it. But I have noticed that, and he also goes on to say that LARI is a theme relevant index that uses, and theme relevance index is what you created, but he says theme relevant index that uses the Bayes and the LSI values for the keyword measured against the average for the entire list of terms. Return to determine a relevant score. Now, if you're with me on that one, then you guys are smarter than everybody in the room. So, a score above 60, here's where Sue was coming in. A score above 60 is highly relevant, okay? And guys, this is all on themesinglossary.com under the letter L, if you want that scale. A score above 60 is highly relevant. A score between 40 and 60 is largely relevant, and the score under 40 is starting to get tangent.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the scale.
Exactly. So the other thing that I want to show you with this is you can pick this whole thing up without having to understand it. And you can come over here to the filter and we can apply this. We can say, and paste all of this in greater than, let's say, 40. And this is going to give us a LARI that's going to chop the LARI off so that you only get the stuff larger than 40. Now, we've also got the rest of this filter in here, right? So the term count's going to be greater than 1, and the cost per click is going to be greater than $1.50 as well. So in that regard, you're starting to get multiple single keywords that are worth a little bit of money that are relevant to your seed term. And if you want them highly relevant to your seed term, then we can change that 40 to a 60. Or you can play with it. Like the easiest thing to do is to look down this list and go, okay, this is where I want to cut it off. I want to cut it off at 67. So you cut it off at 67, you hit your export, you take your keywords, and you bounce them over into Domain Web Studio. That's the way that I typically use it. I figure out what it is I want. Because there's nothing worse than, for me personally, than having so many keywords over in Domain Web Studio that aren't what I'm looking for, and inevitably those tend to be the ones that float to the top. So then I'm in Domain Web Studio going delete, 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 delete to find the keywords that I really want. So this way I can really hone down the keyword list to get what it is that I want. Do we have any more questions? Final export of the keyword and put them into Domain Web Studio.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the question that guy asked is what everybody really wants.
Yeah.
And we generally we're going to start focusing on that more in the Domain Web Studio webinars.
Good.
This one is particularly about TLKT, the last keyword tool. I also know that you know that we're moving everything together into Domain Web Studio. That's part of what Sue's evil master plan is.
Yes.
We're creating something called Network Empire, so you won't have to fuss with that. So we don't really want to lose a ton of time doing that. The main thing is to remember that, and we have a lot of questions early on in this webinar of have we moved TLKT to phrase match yet? And a lot of the reason that comes up is because phrase match is what we import in DWS. I would suggest that you attend our DWS lectures and webinars to learn how we process those.
Yeah, and I have to say that fix is not quite in yet, but I'm expecting it this weekend. And I will go hold Kelly's feet over some hot coals or fire. Actually, he's in Ohio. Maybe I'll hold him over an ice cube to get him to do this weekend.
Oh yeah, well he'll throw algorithms at you to stave you off.
I know he will. All right, so that's a little bit of the filters. Oh, and I just want to point out too, when you're here in the custom columns, there's so many columns besides just this, right? Let's look at, for instance, the ORV. ORV is, this is kind of an ORV of what we've got in Kraken, not exactly, but it's close. So we take the cost per click times the searches per day times why is it a 0? I'm sure since it's a default that it's absolutely correct, but that throws me for a loop at the moment. Wow, that's what I get for not looking at something before the webinar. So this gives you an idea of what the Google, oh, it's because it's the organic rank value. That's why. So, yeah, I'm looking actually at the searches per day. No, I still don't understand. That's okay. This will give you a comparable idea of what the organic rank value is for what we have over there in Kraken. You can look up in our glossary and find out what organic rank value is, but basically it's the idea of ascribing a value, an organic rank value to a keyword. So you're looking at ascribing that based off the cost per click. So you've got a number of searches per day. 0.0543. That's just really got me now. You've got the searches per day times the cost per click, and so that's going to give you an idea of the value of the searches. And then we're cutting it in half. I would have multiplied it. I would have thought we multiplied it because the ORV we actually look at across all the different search engines. But, I know why. It's because we're estimating the number of click-throughs you would get in the number 1 position. Duh. Okay, so which is roughly 0.5, 0.6. Depending on what you want to look at. So that's giving you an idea. If you were ranking in the number 1 position and you have, obviously, you've got something engaging, you're not going to sit in the number 1 position for long if if people aren't clicking through. So if you're in the number 1 position, that's a rough idea of the value of the traffic that you would be getting for the word air conditioning. More custom columns. Keyword effectiveness indicator. Let's just take a quick look at that. This is the clicks per day squared divided by KEI. So this is an idea of KEI, right? Isn't I forget who it was. Was it Word Tracker that came up with KEI? So
Yes, that was actually Sumantra Roy, a friend of the Word Tracker team on early SEO.
Okay. And actually, what I would do, what I tend to do with this, because you can see this is all like decimal stuff, right? So what I tend to do is I times it by, it's either 100 or 1,000. It wants spaces, just so you know, around like multiplications and adding and all of those different symbols, it wants spaces. If you get a funky error, check and make sure you've got spaces. So let's try showing that column. Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe it was 1,000. Let's try that. And then, okay. And this starts to get you something kind of meaningful. You sort by KEI. So these keywords then are low-hanging fruit. When you look at searches versus competing pages, these keywords above a 1, those would be the ones that you would want to think about going for. There's other things that I would throw in there. It's a really rough KEI, and I think, yeah, I've got my C's KEI, which is actually much more complex, that I prefer. It gives a little bit more meaning to it. Although heating and cooling, I have to say, floated to the top on both of them. So that's kind of fascinating. But, then you'd want to go and take a look at the page rank, because I have a pretty good idea that page rank, well, yeah, I'd want to go take a look, drill into that and see what the page rank looked like on there before I actually decided that that was going to be the term that I really wanted to go after. So what else do we have for custom columns? LARI, Local Aggregate Relevance Index, which a lot of people have problems finding once I call it LARI. Pay-per-click market value is just the cost per click times the clicks per day times 365, which is going to give it to you in a year rather than in a day. And so then that makes it, this is another value that we've got over in Kraken. So this is the kind of the antithesis of the other one that we looked at, which was the search market value. This is the pay-per-click value. So if you're heavy into pay-per-click, that kind of is helpful for what your potential spend would be. And this is just your searches, your search traffic on a daily basis. So if you just wanted to have an idea of what you can anticipate for your searches on a day. Now, the fascinating thing with this is that you can take this and use it as a point of departure. Let's say that from here, you knew that your conversion, once you get these people on site, your conversion is 2%. So we'll times it by 0.02. And we know that for every sale you make, you're going to make $5 off of it. Then this actually starts to show you, what did I do wrong? Oh, it wants a 0 in front of that. This starts to show you what you can expect out of, we could put a $sign in front of that. That would make things a little bit more interesting. This is actually going to start to show you your return on investment. And it was this calculation that I was doing here inside of TLKT that started to make us expand on that idea over in Domain Web Studio. But if you want to get a quick and dirty idea of what those values are, you can certainly code them in here. And then just, again, you can take a cutoff point and say that you don't want anything that's not going to net you at least $5 a day. So if we come in here and we say, we grab that, and we come back over to our filter, and along with everything else we go, and all of this greater than 5. Keep your fingers crossed. Don't try this at home. All right, there we go. So there's your keyword list for your potential ROI. I should really change this from SEO to potential ROI. You can do that. I'll just show you where you can do that. That's the column header right here, potential ROI. So now you've got your potential ROI. Let's just look at what this filter is now that we've looked at it. You've got your keyword term count greater than 1. You've got your cost per click greater than $1.50. You could, since you've got this in here, we could probably take this out. This probably isn't so interesting anymore because we already talk about, we're already ensuring that we've got interesting cost data down here. We want to make sure that your LARI is greater than 60, and we want to make sure that your ROI is greater than $5. Let's apply that filter. All right, so keyword list might be a keyword or two longer than it was, but it's kind of sort of the same. So, how many of you guys would like this filter? Anybody interested? I think it's a pretty cool one, personally. All right. Just shoot it in the window to everybody. This is the perk you get for actually being on the webinar.
All right.
All right, so Kevin asks, would you use all of those keywords in the same article? No, I would use these keywords on my site. I'm always kind of thinking, building my site out at this point, I'd grab all these keywords. I mean, you could. You definitely can use TLKT for building out an article, but if these keywords are so important to me that they're each netting me $5, at least $5 a pop, I would probably make, at least these guys from the $10 up, I would probably make at least those guys, my parent theme for articles. If I wanted to find, there's a question, there's a good question. So let's say that my article is actually furnace repair, because this is what I would do. I would, if I'm going to find keywords for a particular article, I'm going to drill into that term. And then what would be a good filter for finding keywords for an article? I would definitely want, a LARI greater than 60. I might even set that higher, but definitely greater than 60. I'd want a term count greater than 1. And I probably wouldn't care about the cost per click. So if I apply that filter, and we just look down, so my term is furnace repair, I'd probably want competing pages lower than my parent theme, because typically your keywords, you want them to be supporting keywords and not keywords that are more broad. So, oops, that's the column. Let's come back to the filter. So I would want click searches competing pages. Actually, we can do it this way. Competing pages less than the seed term, right? And competing pages less than the seed term. Apply that filter. Ooh, there aren't any. Why aren't there any? Let's take this down to like 40 and see what happens. Competing pages less than the seed term. That's the right direction. I don't think that's right. Hang on. Just kill that for a second. You don't want a lingering space on these. It'll throw you an error. Let me just show you the error it throws you. Oh, it doesn't throw you an error anymore. That's great. That got fixed. So if let's sort by competing pages. Yeah, we've got competing pages that are smaller than this. 22 million. Competing pages are less than, oh, you know what I did? I put in cost per click. Duh. All right. Competing pages. Let's see if I use the right variable. That helps so much. All right, so that's still quite a lot of keywords. We should narrow that down a little bit more. Greater than 1. LARI. Let's put the LARI back up to 60. See what that does. The thing I like about being able to hit save here is that I can see, okay, there's still 76 keywords there. Maybe I put a term count greater than 2, because that's going to give me 3 shingles and above. And that's got me down to 53. Maybe I'll try this at 70. Now I can also say something, I can get creative with this, and I can say that it's less than the competing pages times 0.8. So it's not just like 1 less than the competing pages, but it's actually, 20% less. Oops, 0.8. Didn't I do this once already? Dang. All right. So now we're down to like 16 keywords. That's a reasonable number of keywords for me to actually be able to look through and figure out, 5 or 6 keywords that I want to use for supporting terms. Do we have any questions on all of that? I covered a lot.
Looks like we did have a question that Guy asked later. I don't know if you can answer it now. It's in context.
Okay.
But he said something in response to you said, let me just find that real quick. When you say, I would like to go in and see what keyword looks like, you mean you would take a look at PageRank optimization criteria? Is that what you meant when you said you'd go in and see what the keyword looks like?
Yes.
Or are you talking about just drilling into, okay.
Probably. I was probably talking about, at the very least, I was talking about actually drilling, taking a deep inspection, what we call a deep inspection, or a competitive analysis, to see what the keyword looks like, and I might actually drill all the way into it. Kind of depends. Okay. I was talking about a couple of different things there. So if I know one thing I was talking about was if I were going to write an article on a particular term and I were using TLKT to find my keywords, I would actually drill into it.
Okay.
So that might have been the other thing that I was talking about.
Kevin tossed out a question about, would you use how many of these keywords are used in the same article and silo headers and all these things. Do you have anything you want to comment on that?
Silo headers, we can talk about how to find silos here in a second. How many keywords I use in an article? Typically 5 to 7. Obviously you got your main term, your parent term, and then I try to have 1 or 2 synonyms, and then 3 to 5 supporting keywords. So that's just kind of, I find that if I get more than that, then it gets a bit unwieldy. So you guys want this filter, huh? There you go. Alright. And there was another question there that was good. Why is competing pages important? The 10 results in the first page. I'm not sure about the 10 results in the first page, Ruben, that you're talking about, but let me talk for a moment about competing pages, because competing pages, I find Google uses an algorithm for competing pages rather than the actual number of competing pages, and I find that algorithm really interesting. It's one of the reasons why we based Domain Web Studio, part of our costs in Domain Web Studio for your website, around competing pages. And you'll see that next to MSN or Yahoo, there's absolutely no relevance whatsoever. And for me, competing pages indicates the size of the conversation, right? So most of the time, as you walk from the top of a vertical market down into one of its smallest niches, you'll find the competing pages descends along with you. And so I use that as a rule of thumb to determine that I'm kind of on the right track for supporting keyword. If my supporting keyword is larger, has more competing pages than my parent term, then it doesn't really support the theme. I mean, it's thematically related, but it doesn't really play a supporting role because the concept of it really overshadows that parent term. Now you can, normally during the course of writing an article, you'll use keywords that are further up the vertical ladder, so as to speak, than your parent term. But when I'm looking at keywords that I'm actually targeting, and that's the difference, that I'm targeting these keywords, then I want those to play more of a supporting role. In other words, I want to make sure that I've got, within my dialogue in my article, I want to make sure that I've got keywords that are niche-y compared to my parent term, that play a supporting role. You'll find that spam doesn't do that. Spam articles have more broad terms because they're trying to write for broad markets, they're trying to write for one-size-fits-all, so they don't get so specific. So it's just always made sense to me that you would want to get specific in your article. I've always taught that, but recently, in the last couple of Panda and Penguin updates, they've actually started looking for that. They've started looking for expert verbiage and looking for supporting role keywords. So that's one of the reasons why I look at competing pages when I'm looking at my supporting keywords. Now that doesn't always, life isn't perfect. Conversations aren't perfect, and particular markets or particular marketing avenues will skew those numbers under certain circumstances. One of my favorite examples of that is in the health and wellness industry. If you're looking at antioxidants is not a large market by any stretch of the imagination, and one of the terms underneath antioxidants is acai, or acai berries. And because that's been used over in the diet industry, the number of competing pages with it is huge. It shouldn't fit underneath antioxidants. And yet, if you're writing about antioxidants, it's surely one that you're going to include. And so there are exceptions to the rule all over like that. Don't force yourself. Don't force a square peg into a round hole. Don't force yourself to go by the fact that you have to have ever diminishing competing pages as you walk down the tree of your website, or even in terms of the supporting keywords that you're using for an article, but just be aware. All right. Do we have any other questions? Golden niches.
Right, that was the question on the golden niches.
Okay. So here, one of the filters, actually the one that Matt wrote was the creamy filter. So creamy filter and golden niches are very much related. If you look at golden niches, this is the cost per click is greater than $1. The competing pages are less than $500,000, and LARI is greater than 39, so it's 40 and above. So that just kind of gives you a ballpark. You can play around with that, whatever you feel a niche is. If you feel a niche is, let's just apply this filter for a second. We only come back with 2 in this particular market. Now, because this is hard-coded in at $500,000, the broader the market that you've drilled into, the fewer the keywords you're probably going to find back at this level. The smaller the niche you've drilled into, the more keywords you're going to find. It also has to do with how rich it is, right? We've got this at $1. If we change this to 0.50, we would probably come back with a couple more keywords. Not really. 0.1? Maybe? Not really. Okay. If we increase this to 1,000,000, yeah, that brings us back a few. So then it just depends on how competitive you want your golden niche to be. I know that there's a lot of guys out there who feel uncomfortable going for 1,000,000 pages or larger, but remember too, this is broad match. And I know that Kelley wants to make it so that even though phrase match won't be actually displayed on the screen, I just don't have the space for it, but even though it's not going to be displayed on the screen, it will be available through the filter. So you'd be able to change this filter. Instead of Google competing pages, it'll be like Google competing pages phrase, less than 1,000,000. And then you'll actually see phrase match for less than 1,000,000 there, or less than $500,000. And that'll net you a whole lot more. There's absolutely no correspondence that I can see between broad match competing pages and phrase match competing pages. They're just kind of like all over the chart. So you can easily have 5,000,000, maybe even 7,000,000 pages broad match before you hit 1,000,000 pages phrase match. So just something to think about. That was, I think that was golden niches. Let's look at creamy for a second. So this is the keyword uses is greater than 1, and the cost per click is greater than 5. And I have to say, this thing with the 365, this is supposed to be like a KEI kind of a thing. Searches per day squared times 365 divided by the Yahoo competing page is greater than 1. If you have problems with this particular creamy filter, remove that part and just have just go from the cost per click greater than 1/2 to competing pages less than the seed, and then the rest of it's just LARI greater than 40. Let's try applying this and see if it comes back. It's got 1 keyword, but if I get rid of this, I got rid of the and there, so I need to keep the and there. If I get rid of that, I'll probably have a whole lot more keywords, and these keywords will be good too. But if you've got too many keywords coming back, then you can use that other KEI-like type of thing in there, and that'll make the number of keywords you have smaller. Is the custom column? No, the custom column doesn't affect the results. It just always shows you the results for whatever the keywords are that are showing up there. The only time, you have to actually pick up the guts of this and include it in the filter in order for it to affect the results. Any other questions? A good name for this last filter. Oh, you know what? I've been through 2 or 3 filters since then. I don't even remember what I did anymore. Hang on a second. Let me pull it back. Term count is greater than 2. LARI greater than 70. Keyword pages. Oh, I would call it a supporting keyword filter. Yeah, supporting terms for articles, exactly. Any other questions for us?
Looks like that's it. We have come up to date, up to speed.
Okay.
Did you have any other directions that you wanted to take this? Does anybody have any other particular features that they would like to see?
Tora's got an excellent one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah,
new.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Ken, he wants you to see the keyword matches.
Yeah, this is great. This is so cool. This is like one of my favorite parts. Okay, let me get rid of this filter in its entirety. And so if you want to get rid of a filter or of a column, you just delete that and apply it, and then it's gone. And the reason I want to get rid of it is because I want to find something in here that I want to do a search for. So the cool thing about the pattern matching is you can take the stem of a keyword, or you can take a couple of bits, and you can look for something that way. So let's say I'm looking for more like heat. Let's just try heat. So if I say I always grab what it is I'm looking for just so I don't make any typos. So I'm going to grab that, and then instead of the A, I'm going to say percent heat percent. So percent is a wild card. Okay, so I want a keyword that matches anywhere within the keyword I'm looking for the 4 letters HEAT, and I'm going to apply that. And so now you'll see that everything here is a long tail of heat, one way or another. Heat can be at the beginning, heating services. It can be at the end, electric heater. It can be in the middle, home heating and cooling. Okay, so this gives you the capacity to do great things with, like let's say you're doing a locale. Let's say we want to find everything that's got anything to do with Chicago. Because I know that there were quite a few Chicago things, okay? So I'm actually, at this point, let's say that I'm actually doing a local website on Chicago heating. Well, boom, there are all of my Chicago terms right there. Right, so let's say Chicago heat, like, you've got HVAC repair, you've got some things here that are AC repair. You've got a few things that are maybe like not quite heating. We can do it again. Keyword matches percent heat. So now we're going to have Chicago and heat somewhere in the thing. Right? So now we've got Chicago heating, heating repair, Chicago heating, air conditioning, blah, 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 blah. Cool? Is that cool? I'm expecting a round of applause somehow. We gotta, this virtual thing, it needs to come the next step.
Oh, I have them muted. That everybody was screaming. Everybody was hollering and clapping. I just had everybody muted. Sorry about that.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so let's talk about the other things that you can do. The underscore will match a single character. So let's say that I wanted like heat, bump, NG. So that'll get me heating, right? Or if there's another letter in there that would be ING, then that would be possible too. Now the cool thing about that is right now one of the locales that I'm working with is Washington, D.C., right? But the abbreviation for DC isn't always the same. A lot of times it's D period, C period, and other times it's just DC. So what I can do for that particular instance is I can say D underscore C underscore. And if there's a character there, it'll print it. If there's not a character there, we'd have to get rid of the Chicago thing, wouldn't we? Like you can't have Chicago and DC in the same keyword. That just seems a bit. Now, the problem with that, obviously, is you're going to have other things. You've got duct cleaning, right? And cooling. So, it's going to throw in DUC. So it's going to have, any keyword can be that wildcard, that underscore wildcard. So there's clearly no DC things here, but you get the idea of what that single character wildcard is. So your percentage is going to match anything. Your underscore is going to match a single character. And then, of course, you can have exact match, where I only want to find something that says, that has heating and cooling. Then you're only going to get that one keyword, which is heating and cooling. Okay. I will tell you this, you can also get really, really crazy with this stuff. You can do logs, you can do square roots, and you can do absolute values, as well as pluses and minuses and multiplication and divide and modulos and exponentials. We did look at something in there that was an exponential in the golden, not the golden, the Mainwood Studio filter, the creamy filter that gave you an idea of searches per day that are squared. But you can get very, very, very creative with this. He's got mins, max, and averages for the LSI and for the Bayes and for the uses. And then greater than and equal to. If you're going to use greater than equal to, it's the greater than or less than sign has to come before the equal. I've gotten a couple help desk requests, people not being able to figure that out. And I think everything else, keyword was imported. So like, let's just throw all of this away and look at keyword was imported. Now this is going to come back with absolutely nothing, but I can come up here and I can import a couple of keywords like heating and cooling Washington, D.C. And then it'll go off and it'll do its little boogie. It'll have to drill into the keyword and figure out what the cost per click is and the competing pages and all of that kind of good stuff, but it shouldn't take it too long. So I'm going to wait for this. You can see this falls here into the pending requests. And as soon as it's done, assuming that everybody else in this isn't doing something similar, it'll be done pretty quickly. It'll fall down here into this category. Any other questions while we're waiting for this to drill? No, it's all quiet on the Western Front.
Nope, except for the occasional humorous comments by Kevin Polly.
So along with keyword was imported, that's going to bring you back all the keywords that were imported. Keyword was generated are going to be all the ones that were drilled. And if the keyword was already there when it was generated, it's not going to come back, and the imported version is not going to overwrite. So now I'm back, and you can see heating and cooling Washington, D.C. That's the only term that's there because that's the only term that was imported. And so now if I say keyword was generated and apply that filter, it should come back with all but one keyword, 334 out of 335. And if I do a search for DC, you'll see that that keyword's not the one that's there. So, generated import, pure diverse, partially diverse, and long tail. These are great. So, let's start with pure diverse. Pure diverse means there's not any part of the keyword that's part of the original seed term. So pure diverse is a great way. What I would do if I were looking to diversify my keyword portfolio, so as to speak, I would come in here, I would grab LARI, I would come over here and say I want my keyword to be pure diverse, and I want LARI to be greater than 60. And so this is going to give me pure diverse keywords that are highly relevant to my theme. And if you still find those to be just a bit too broad, there's like 52 terms there, so that's quite a lot. Air conditioning, design, heating services. I mean, you're going to get a lot of air conditioning stuff because heating sites are also servicing air conditioners, so there's just not a good way to split those two ideas out. But you've got great terms: heating warranty, HVAC. All of the HVAC terms are going to be here. Now, oh yeah, we were furnace repair, so you're going to get heating and cooling predominantly. So if we can say your keyword is partially diverse. And that's going to get the keywords that have got part of your seed term in them. So like repair is a subset of furnace repair. Chicago air conditioning repair, again, has got repair in there. So all the repair terms are going to come back, and as well as all of the furnace terms are going to be in there. And then the other thing that you can have is a long tail. And if you're looking for long tails, if you're in a market and you're like, wow, that market's just too intense, what kind of long tails can I find? Then you can do long tails, and then you can start combining long tails with cost per click and limit the number of competing pages and those kinds of things, and you can narrow down what it is. Like maybe you want to go into electric furnace repair. Maybe that's the angle that you want to take. Or you'll see that locales might fall into that sort of a frame that you want. So so that's how you use those. Keyword is seed. Keyword is seed is just saying, it's just looking for your keyword term. Your keyword term count we went over, keyword uses we went over, Bayes, LSI, competing pages, those are all pretty obvious. All right. How would you recommend creating a product based on TLK2 results? Creating a product. Wow.
Hey, Sue.
Yeah.
I can try to address that a little bit.
Go for it.
He's gonna have to clarify his question.
Okay.
Because it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
If you're talking about selecting a product, or you're talking about creating a product. Ruben, can you tell us?
He's probably busy typing.
Yeah. Okay. I will say that co-occurrence is something that Sue and I use in Kraken to select creating. Okay. I won't mention the niche that you mentioned here. One of the things that I use is co-occurrence to determine tangent interests and overlapping interests. That's done by a combination of research, overlapping interest research, and then social congruency. So you can look to see that. I use LSI to find out what the conversation is overall around. If I want to go to the advanced level, I go to Kraken, because that way I can have a visual display with things that overlap using co-occurrence. But I can still create a product once I've researched the $4 million market research questions. So one of the things that you might want to do, Ruben, is I'll drop the link here as well, but also type in $4 million market research questions. In Google, it's a PDF, will come up number one. Something that Sue and I created to help you ask 4 questions before you create or select an affiliate product. And of course, creating would be even more. You would want to be researched even more before you actually spend money creating something. Okay, so that'll be one answer that I'll give you. Yeah,
and the interesting thing is pain often coincides with cost per click. So if you're looking for something that's, if you're looking for the pain in the marketplace, follow the money. Typically also that's going to mean that there are other affiliate products out there. There are other products that are covering that pain. If you get into really ridiculous cost per clicks, it almost always means that there's an affiliate product behind it. And And I mean, that can be a good thing. You don't want to necessarily you don't want to create a market where there's not any competition because people aren't aware that they should be looking for a product. So having some competition is a good thing. Having too much competition, having that competition be too competitive so that you can't ever rank for the terms that you need to, that's a whole other thing. And so, as Russ said, that's probably where I would be headed over to Kraken to see how the market lies. Kraken just does a superior job of showing you the entire market in that regard. How would you use TLK2 to work out if a synonym should be used to swap out the seed term or be used elsewhere? So that's going to depend on a couple of things. If it's truly a synonym, in other words, both of the terms are equally meaningful to what your USP is, as well as being pretty much the same in terms of meaning, then I would probably look at competition. If I want to rank for both keywords on the same page, then my synonym is going to be the lesser competitive term because the primary term ends up being the keyword that's on the title. In the H1, it's in the title on the page, it's in the menu structure, and so it just gets reinforced a whole lot more. So you want your most competitive term there. If both terms are competitive, then I would consider, and you want to rank for both of them, I would consider putting them on different pages so that you make sure that you rank for them. You can target them as much as you need to until you get ranked. Okay. All right, I think we've got all the questions answered. And I've pretty much covered everything. I think you guys have seen pretty much everything that TLKT can do. So thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Okay, so if you have any further questions, go ahead and let us know through the channels. I'll answer whatever I can. I'm trying to help Sue out with as many of these questions. She's got a lot of development that we're doing, and we're putting these things together with Network Empire. And if you saw Sue's so-called short list that comes to development, you'd realize that she doesn't have something called a short list. So we're putting things together in some amazing ways, and we will be showing you more ways. This was just a very basic introductory course on TLKT. I use TLKT in some freakish ways for content curation, for press release distribution, for conversation tracking, and the rest. Before I'll even go to the Google Trends tool when I'm looking at press releases, I'll actually go to TLKT to get a deeper point in the conversation. And it has availed me a lot in coming up with better press release, and even sometimes change the course of my action if I'm doing a trending press release because the conversation is more obvious based on product. Anyway, we will have more advanced courses on this. I do cover TLKT and curationprofits.com. But if you have not checked out this tool, I do recommend that you go to themezoom.com. That's the current link, call to action we're giving out now, right, Sue?
Yeah.
You want them to go to, because they can go to the last keywordtool.com, right? Is that the link we're giving out?
Oh, themezoom.com is fine.
Now, just be advised that there is a special package that's available at networkempire.com. And, Guy asked earlier on, well, hey, how do I use all these together, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of videos inside the membership area. Sue even gives some private videos on how to do local search with the last keyword tool inside localsearchempire.com. And that is all part. Local Search Empire is a part of networkempire.com, okay? The only courses that you don't get when you join us is the content curation course is extra and the local leads empire course, okay? But you do get the local search course. All right, so I would recommend that you check this out. If you're interested in building an empire and you want to do more than one blog and you have clients, go ahead to networkempire.com. And we do offer a package of the last keyword tool. Oh, I'm showing them the sales page. All right, guys, so I had asked her not to show that on a live webinar. That's the discount price rate page. That's / sales desk page. Those of you who've been grandfathered in are getting at the same price, but you can visit networkempire.com sales-page, and you can learn more about the pricing in there. And that is actually kind of giving away the whole goose because now you have all our non-public price points.
Yeah.
Which means I'm going to have to edit this video. So that's okay. That's all right. I leave it to you to give everybody all the discounts. So
absolutely.
Anyway, I really hope you guys join us. We will be teaching more advanced stuff again. I know that many of you are aware that we're just breaking through the very surface of this. I will make an admission here. I'm going to make this admission to any brand newbies. This software was designed for developers by developers, without any pretense. It doesn't have an easy button on it. We have plans to implement some things where you don't have to put the filter in on the rest, but what we discovered is the original intent behind the software was to have a little forum where people are building their own algorithms. I mean, now it seems kind of like a crazy idea, but at the time it was something that we were going to do. We were going to build a forum because several of our own users ended up coming up with algorithms that was literally helping them discover crazy things based on what they were looking for. Like one person wrote a press release algorithm, another person wrote a golden, that's how the creamy and the golden niche came.
Right.
So the bottom line is that I didn't get, Kelly and Sue just don't do small things, and they don't do it for the ordinary user. Okay. However, the ordinary user can use this. Our tutorials have been made very simple. If you can copy and paste a filter, you can copy and paste Sue and Kelly's brain into the application. Okay. So I look forward to seeing you next time. We will be having a DWS webinar on Wednesday, and we will be skipping next Thursday's Kraken webinar because I have family business. I'll be leaving town for a moment. But I really look forward to you guys taking this journey with us to the full, complete Network Empire application. And, we'll see you on the inside. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.